So good morning. Thanks for coming once again. Hope everyone had a warm and smooth as possible holiday season. And thanks for being here today. So we're reaching the end of the year. I'm sure folks are thinking about their New Year's resolutions, reflecting on the last year that we just had. And I was really inspired to share something this morning that I saw when I went to my friends. They threw what they were calling a salon. And I don't know if y'all know, I think an old European tradition, a salon is basically like friends coming together and having an open mic, basically sharing poetry, songs, playing instruments, singing, just kind of a chance for friends and family to come together in a small setting and do art together, basically, do performance together. And it's a really nice event that my friends put on, and they do it like every 2 months, 2 or 3 months. And before every salon, they open it up with a little poem. They hand out these little cards here, and I obviously have had mine for a while. It's kind of crinkled up. But we all read this poem together. It's a poem by Mickey Scott B. Jones, who you can look her up, but she's kind of like a leadership life coach, I guess you could say. And life coach, ooh, that's a tricky word. But she has some pretty awesome core principles and a really nice vibe. And we read this poem, and I just thought it sounded so much like Zazen, the Three Treasures, Sangha, community practice, so much of what we talk about here. And I thought it was just a really inspiring piece, particularly as we embark on this new year together. So this poem by Mickey Scott B. Jones is called An Invitation to a Brave Space. So I'll just read the whole poem first. Together, we will create brave space because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. So for those of you who are familiar with Buddhist and Zen stuff, I think a lot of this will sound very familiar. And so, yeah, let's just kind of go line by line, and hopefully it can, I don't know, give you some kind of inspiration as you deepen your practice, as you grow into your spiritual path. So it starts by saying, together we will create brave space. Even just that first word, together, is so important, right? The third treasure, the third jewel of Buddhism is Sangha, community, doing this together. I think a lot of us come to spiritual practice just looking to feel better or to have my own enlightenment. There's a lot of drive about me and my life, my understanding. But really, the practice of Buddhism is a practice of togetherness. no matter who it is. So together we will create brave space. I just love that so much. Brave space. I was just with my family, and the parting words from my aunt, who I think is here today, she said something very simple, but it's not something I hear a lot. I look for advice and ask people for wisdom and advice all over the place, and I don't really hear this a lot. But she just simply said, courage, Bob. Courage. I don't think about that a lot. Maybe you do, but I don't. But not just our life in this impermanent world, but this practice, really diving into spiritual practice takes courage. Sitting in silence, investigating ourself. Stuff comes up. Physical discomfort, emotional discomfort, patterns and conditioning we weren't even aware of, coming up against conflict with other people in our community. These are scary. These are tough. And it takes bravery. This is a brave practice to come down here and sit on the ground and question the nature of existence. It takes courage to do sesshin or retreat and dedicate a certain amount of time to intensive sitting. It takes courage. Anything that involves growth or healing or opening our hearts and minds takes courage. So applaud yourself for the courage that brought you here and for the courage it will take to keep coming here. It reminds me of, I forgot who's coined the term, but there's kind of a phrase that's used a lot in social justice work these days called color bravery, which is kind of in response to the old notion of color blindness, right? Like after the civil rights movement, it was kind of cool to be colorblind. Oh, I don't see race. Everyone's equal. And then we saw that that is a very limited approach to social justice. And so that kind of turned from color blindness into color bravery. We have to be brave about talking about race, acknowledging race, acknowledging how it is different to grow up as a certain kind of person in our society. And so I don't know, I'm just really resonating with this idea. And I want to go into this new year really centering bravery and seeing this yurt, seeing this practice as a place to come be brave and really face your true self. So the next line says, because there is no such thing as a safe space. And just that is such a brave thing to say, because safe spaces are so prevalent nowadays. It's a big agreement that a lot of communities set forth. And of course, it's a thing, right? A safe space is great to say. Like when we do council practice here, we say this is a safe space. We try to be non-judgmental. We definitely commit to physical safety. We do our best to keep an open heart and mind to everyone's perspective. And that's very important, right? We have to work towards that. But it's so important that she says there's no such thing really as a safe space. And I see that for many different reasons, right? We can't control people and their thoughts and their judgments. So yeah, we can say it's a safe space, but if I say something and that triggers Jose to think something and then he walks away saying Bobby's an asshole, I can't control that. So in that sense, we can't really guarantee a safe space. But I think what she's saying and what I get from that goes a little bit deeper than that, which is really pointing to this, fundamental Buddhist point of impermanence and not knowing and no self. One way we can summarize all of the Buddha's teachings is he said that we suffer and we cause suffering because we want safety. We attach to this safety. We want some kind of nesting place to hold on to. This is the way the world is. I'll be safe if I do this. I'm safe in this knowledge because this is what it is, and I can know it and I can hold on to it. But no, what the Buddha woke up to, and what we all wake up to, is that the world is always changing. Our thoughts, our opinions, our loved ones, our Zen center, our teacher, our friends, always changing. There is no ground to stand on. Or last week in my talk, we talked about the koan that says, there is no basis on which to depend. And so that to me is this no such thing as a safe space. And that's what we open up to in our Zazen practice. Letting go of safety, that deep safety, but obviously physical safety and, practical safety you will always find here to the best of our ability. But as far as this deep safety, deep knowing that this will always be there, this is a safe thing to believe in. Zazen is opening up to the non-safety. And even though it takes bravery to do that, when you really get intimate with that no safety place, it really is liberation. We're no longer slave to having to feel safe, having to know things, being safe in my little nest of knowledge, my little nest of understanding. Insofar as Buddhist practice is the practice of killing the self, we can see very clearly that this is not a safe space. It's no such thing as a safe space. I love that she says that. It goes on. We exist in the real world, and we all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds. Yeah, that's such a beautiful expression of compassion and empathy. Realizing that we are all living with our karma, and our karma gives us suffering and pain, and our karma makes us act out, cause harm for ourselves and others. And in a way, by saying that, that kind of explains why there is no such thing as a safe space. Because we're all these traumatized, scarred beings. Even the Buddha, right? The Buddha was a prince in India, and his dad made sure that he never knew anything but joy, never saw anything but beautiful people, and ate the best food and learned the best things and, access to all the most joyful, beautiful things, never saw any sickness, never saw any death, and still the Buddha was compelled to pursue suffering. What is this thing I feel? What is this suffering? So none of us escape it. None of us are free of suffering for ourselves and others. And that's why the first noble truth, life is suffering. We're all just bumping up against each other with our karmic wounds and our karmic needs, our karmic conditioning. So then it goes on, in this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. So that pretty blatantly applies to us here, right? We come into the yurt, We leave our phones outside. We have no music or TV going. Um, and it was used for this little open mic that my friends did, and even in that space, yeah, we tune out our outside life, and we're really here with each other. Um, and I guess the only other thing I'd say about that is that if this poem was about zazen, it would be equally important to say that we seek to turn down the volume of the inside world as well, right? Yes, we're turning down our phones and our TV, but we're also turning down the volume of our own thoughts, our own systems of understanding, our own shoulds and should nots and opinions. And of course, what happens when we turn down these volumes is everything gets so loud. We hear the birds, we hear the lawnmower next door. It's like the next line says, we amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. So that's such a beautiful phrase, turning down the noise to amplify voices that otherwise are not heard. So this has to do with marginalized demographics in our culture, turning down our usual method of operation to center voices that we don't hear, center communities and cultures that are marginalized by our institutions, by our culture. And it also refers to the internal world too. Through Zazen, we can really turn down these inside voices that talk about, oh, I gotta get this for mom. Oh, I gotta do that for work. Oh, I have to, I don't know, what do I do about it? We quiet that so that we can hear the deeper voices come up, right? Through this Zazen practice, we get to learn so much about ourselves. We get to see those voices that are otherwise smothered by our busy life, our compulsive life. And what about the birds, right? That's what we notice. A lot of people work with me on the koan. Who is it that's hearing? And that practice is about deep listening. And almost everyone that goes through this koan says how amazed they are at all the things they weren't hearing before. These voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. It's the voice of your sadness. It's the voice of the lowriders passing by on Highland Avenue. The voice of your stomach grumbling because it's hungry. All these voices that we miss all the time because we're lost in some kind of thing. So what a beautiful offering that Zazen gives us to amplify all the voices. And then hopefully we get to see that all of those voices are none other than our own. So then she says, we call each other to more truth and love. So I like that spirit of we're calling to each other. That's what we're here to do. We're here to work it out together. Being in Sangha means togetherness and love, yes, and it means fighting with each other, disagreeing with each other, being annoyed by each other. That's where the magic is. That's how we call each other in. That's how we develop deeper truth and love, by really being authentic with each other, being open to conflict with each other. It's through that that we can really go deep together. Of course, I might say, we call each other to more truth and love is fine. I might say we call each other to know truth and know love. We call each other to see, to have the bravery to see the emptiness of everything, even truth and love. Um, we have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have that right. And to me, the key of that line is starting somewhere, because that start is always. It has nothing to do with this is your first time at the Zen Center, so you're starting. This is my 25th year at the Zen Center, and I feel like I'm starting. We have the right to start again every minute, no matter what you've done, no matter how wrong you've been, no matter who you've hurt, no matter what mistakes you've made. The Buddha way is to start again every moment. We have that right. I love that. We have the right to be completely free, to atone for our karmic circumstances and be completely reborn in this moment right now. You have that right. And it doesn't mean that we don't take responsibility for our actions. But in that taking responsibility, we're completely reborn. The whole universe explodes and bursts into flames every minute. Uh, and then she says, we have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. Anyone who's been here hears, the phrase not knowing a lot, right? We talk about that a lot. Not knowing. Sometimes that's a synonymous phrase we use for enlightenment. Really being non-knowing. The famous koan where Bodhidharma says, not knowing is the most intimate. And as we really open up to this practice of non-knowing, we see how deep our knowing goes. How badly we want to feel safe in what we know. And so not only do we have the opportunity to practice these ancient techniques of non-knowing, but she says we have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. And that, I think, is so strong. What a strong phrase. It's our duty. That's, our bravery is a sense of responsibility to open up, to change, to see how liberated and flexible we can be in this ever-changing world. That's compassion. That's service. I mean, I keep exploring this idea that Zazen, this practice of continually opening, continually being reborn as one with the universe, really is social action in and of itself. And I think she says that here. It's our responsibility to see where we're wrong, to see where systems in place could be wrong. Right? It was our responsibility to move from color blindness to color bravery. My responsibility to see, oh, I was wrong about that. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you. Or, wow, this policy that we've had in place for 70 years, it's actually wrong. Our Constitution that was written over 200 years ago, maybe it's wrong. Maybe the Electoral College doesn't suit our needs. Whatever, we can go on. But what an important responsibility to carry. We will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be. But it will be our brave space together. I don't know that I can say anything on top of that. I just am so driven by that and so moved to have a community and a Sangha that wants to explore this brave practice together. Because we have to. If we don't have each other in it, it just doesn't work. So, and she ends it by saying, we will work on it side by side. So, really appreciate that support and appreciate the bravery that even our friends online who are tuning in from Georgia and down the street, uh, the bravery it takes to do this together. Because, yeah, we're all not perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all kind of trudging through this impermanent, unknowable life together. And it takes bravery from everyone because we're all scarred and we've all caused wounds. We're all sharing in this non-safe space of our life. And so I hope that we all feel inspired and encouraged to be courageous in this coming year, both in our spiritual practice, in our physical, material life, in our family life. Um, Lead with bravery and do it side by side with your communities.